Victor Mercer always trusted his instincts. As a former Special Forces operative turned successful private security consultant, those instincts had saved his life more times than he cared to remember. But nothing in his military career or his decade building Mercer Security Solutions had prepared him for the fear in his daughter's eyes that night. "Daddy, we can't sleep in our beds tonight," 5-year-old Lily whispered, her small hand pulling him down to her level in the hallway of their upscale suburban home. Victor knelt, brushing a strand of hair from his daughter's face. "Why not, sweetie?" Lily glanced nervously over her shoulder before leaning closer. "Because that's where they'll look first." A chill ran through Victor's body that had nothing to do with the October air seeping through the windows. His wife, Vanessa, was supposedly at a pharmaceutical sales conference in Chicago, her third business trip in 2 months. He'd had suspicions, but had been too focused on his latest security contract to properly investigate. "Who will look, Lily?" Victor asked, keeping his voice calm despite the alarm bells ringing in his head. "The bad people," Lily whispered. "I heard them talking to Mommy on the computer. They're coming tonight." Victor immediately stood, moving toward the sophisticated home security panel he'd installed himself. As he reached for his phone to check the perimeter cameras, the house plunged into darkness. Not just the lights, everything. The security system, the Wi-Fi, even his cell signal. Someone had cut the main power and was jamming communications. Before he could grab Lily, the front door burst open with a splintering crash. Victor scooped up his daughter and moved silently through the darkness toward the kitchen. His home office with its safe room was too far. Whoever had breached the door would intercept them. The kitchen had a secondary exit, and more importantly, weapons. "Don't make a sound," he whispered to Lily, who nodded against his shoulder. 3 figures entered the foyer. Their silhouettes were visible against the faint glow of streetlights filtering through the windows. They moved with precision, clearly professionals. Victor slid open a hidden panel beneath the kitchen island, extracting a 9mm handgun and a tactical flashlight. He placed Lily in the pantry. "Stay here, princess. Count to 100 before you come out, no matter what you hear." As his daughter began counting in a trembling whisper, Victor moved into the shadows, his mind already calculating angles of attack and escape routes. Whoever these people were, they had chosen the wrong house to invade. Victor felt a surge of anger and betrayal, but he pushed it down, focusing on the task at hand. He needed to get Lily to safety and figure out what was happening. He typed out a quick response, his fingers trembling with rage. "Running late. Be careful." He started the truck and pulled out of the garage, his mind racing. He needed to find a safe house, somewhere off the grid where he could assess the situation and protect Lily. As he drove, he kept glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see headlights following them. But the road behind them remained dark and empty. "Daddy, are we going to see Mommy?" Lily asked softly from the back seat. Victor hesitated, then shook his head. "Not right now, sweetheart. We need to go somewhere safe first." Lily was quiet for a moment before asking, "Is Mommy one of the bad people?" Victor's heart ached at the question. "I don't know, Lily. But we need to be careful until we find out." They drove in silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of Lily shifting in her seat. Victor's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. How deep was Vanessa's involvement? Who were these people, and what did they want with Lily? And what did it mean that his daughter had some kind of unusual abilities? He pulled into a secluded rest stop, the kind of place that was usually deserted at this time of night. He parked the truck in a dark corner, away from the dim glow of the security lights. He turned to Lily, his expression serious. "Listen to me, sweetheart. I need you to stay here and be very quiet. I'm going to check the area and make sure it's safe. Can you do that for me?" Lily nodded, her eyes wide but determined. "I can be braved, Daddy." Victor smiled softly, ruffling her hair. "That's my girl. I'll be right back." He stepped out of the truck, his senses on high alert. He moved silently through the shadows, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. He checked the perimeter, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. He needed to find a safe house, somewhere they could lay low and figure out their next move. He thought of old contacts, safe houses he'd used in his past life. But he needed more information, more time to think. As he circled back to the truck, he noticed a figure standing by the rear bumper. His heart pounded in his chest as he prepared to strike. But then the figure turned, and he recognized the face. It was an old friend, someone he hadn't seen in years, someone who owed him a favor. "Victor," the man said, his voice low. "I heard you might need some help." Victor's eyes narrowed as he studied the man, trying to gauge his intentions. "Who sent you?" The man shrugged. "Let's just say I have a mutual friend who thought you might need a hand. I'm here to offer my assistance, no strings attached." Victor considered the offer for a moment before nodding. "All right, but we need to move fast. We have company on our tail, and I need to get my daughter to safety." The man nodded, his expression grim. "I have a safe house not far from here. It's off the grid, completely secure. You can lay low there while you figure out your next move." Victor's mind raced as he weighed the options. He needed time to think, to plan, and he needed to keep Lily safe. He made his decision, his voice steady and determined. "All right, let's go. But if you're playing me, I swear to God, I will end you." Victor's grip tightened on the phone as Nicolet's words settled into the silence of the mountain cabin. He stepped quietly into the narrow corridor, making sure Lily's door was closed behind him. "What have you found?" he demanded, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Much," Nicolet replied, urgency clouding his accent. "Vanessa Mercer. Real name Vanessa Kovacs. She's not just in pharmaceutical sales, my friend. She's a trained operative. Hungarian intelligence at least until 2 years ago. Then she disappears from official records. Reappears at Helix, working under Damien Wolf." Victor felt his chest tighten. What about Helix? And these special research programs? Nicolet let out a low whistle. "You've stirred a hornet's nest. Multiple black projects, lots of government funding, all under medical cover. But their interest in children with certain genetic markers, that's new. Wolf's own emails mention something called Project Dawn Asset, and your daughter's name, Lily, is on an encrypted list. So is Vanessa's. She may have brought you in for this, Victor. I'll keep digging." Victor forced himself to breathe slowly, absorbing every terrifying implication. "Thank you, Nicolet. Watch your back." "They don't scare me," Nicolet said. "But you, they should be afraid of you. I'll contact you when I know more." Then the line went dead. Victor stared at the phone, anger and determination flaring inside him. Vanessa had deceived him from the start. Had she ever really loved him, or was it all part of some carefully orchestrated operation? And Lily, their daughter, was she always meant to be an asset, a pawn for these shadowy figures clinging to power? A movement from the other room pulled Victor from his thoughts. Lily stood silently in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, are you okay?" she asked softly. Victor managed a gentle smile, crossing the space to kneel beside her. "I will be, sweetheart. I promise. But we're going to have to be very brave for a while." She nodded and slipped her hand into his, giving it a reassuring squeeze. For a moment, the horrors of the night faded, replaced by the quiet strength of their bond. No matter the forces arrayed against them, Victor knew one thing: they would face them together. He would not let another child suffer the way Lily had. He would not let these monsters exploit innocent lives for their twisted experiments. He would take them down, every last one of them. "Listen to me, Lily," he said, his voice steady and determined. "We're going to help those children. We're going to make sure they're safe and happy. But it's going to be dangerous, and I need you to be very brave." Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide but resolute. "I can be brave, Daddy. I want to help them." Victor smiled softly, ruffling her hair. "That's my girl. But for now, I need you to stay here and be very quiet. I have to make some preparations." He set her down gently and turned back to the rifle, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. He needed to gather more information, secure a team, and devise a strategy. But he knew one thing for certain. He would not fail these children. He would not let them down. As he worked, he thought about the facility in rural Pennsylvania, the academy, as Nikolai had called it. He imagined the children there, their young lives twisted and manipulated by the very people who were supposed to protect them. He thought about Lily, about the fear in her eyes when she spoke of the other children crying at night. And he thought about Vanessa, about the lies and deception that had defined their marriage. His anger burned hot, but he pushed it down, focusing on the task at hand. He would need every ounce of his skill, every resource at his disposal. He would need to be the man he once was, the operative who had struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. But this time, it would be personal. This time, it would be for Lily. And for every child who had been hurt by these monsters. He finished assembling the rifle, his movements precise and practiced. He checked the scope, the magazine, every detail. Then he set it aside and turned to the printouts, poring over the maps, the security details, the personnel files. He committed every detail to memory, his mind already formulating a plan. He would start with reconnaissance, a silent, unseen observer. He would watch, he would learn, and he would strike when the time was right. He would take down the academy, and he would free the children. And then, he would make sure that those responsible paid for their crimes. But for now, he had to be patient. He had to be careful. He had to be the ghost in the shadows, the unseen hand of justice, and he had to keep Lily safe, no matter what it took. He looked up as Lily entered the room, her small hand clutching a stuffed animal. She climbed onto his lap, her eyes filled with trust and love. And in that moment, he knew that he would do whatever it took to protect her, to protect them all. "Daddy, when are we going to help the other children?" she asked softly. Victor smiled, his voice filled with determination. "Soon, sweetheart. Very soon." Victor nodded, his eyes never leaving the academy. "Good. We'll need to take out the power and disable the cameras. But we can't just storm the place. We need to be precise, surgical. We can't risk hurting the children." Marianne adjusted the strap of her rifle, her expression grim. "Agreed. We'll need to infiltrate the facility, gather intel on the children's locations, and then extract them quietly. Any idea how many guards we're looking at?" Diego consulted his tablet, his fingers flying over the screen. "At least 20 on-site, plus an unknown number of administrators and scientists. But they're not all armed. Most of the staff seems to be civilian." Victor's mind raced as he formulated a plan. "All right, here's what we'll do. Marianne and I will handle the infiltration. We'll split up, cover more ground. Diego, you'll be our eyes and ears, hacking into their systems, feeding us real-time updates. Quinn, you'll be on standby with the explosives, ready to take out key targets if needed." Quinn, a tall, muscular man with a scar running down his cheek, nodded. "Understood. I'll set up a perimeter, make sure we're not surprised." Victor turned to Lily, who had been quietly listening from the shadows. "Sweetheart, I need you to stay here with Diego. Can you do that for me?" Lily nodded, her eyes wide but determined. "I can be brave, Daddy. I want to help." Victor smiled softly, ruffling her hair. "That's my girl. But for now, I need you to stay safe. Can you do that?" Lily nodded again, and Victor turned back to the others. "All right, let's move out. Remember, our priority is the children. We get them out safely, and then we take down Helix." They moved silently through the woods, their weapons at the ready. Victor's heart pounded in his chest, but his mind was clear, focused. He knew the risks, the dangers, but he also knew that he couldn't fail. Not this time. Not when so much was at stake. As they approached the academy, Victor could see the guards patrolling the grounds, their movements precise and practiced. He could see the cameras, the sensors, the layers of security designed to keep the children in and the world out. But he also saw the vulnerability, the chinks in the armor. And he knew that they could exploit them, that they could slip through the cracks and free the children. He took a deep breath, his hand tightening on his weapon. This was it, the moment of truth, the moment when he would either save the children or fail them forever. And he knew, without a doubt, that he would not fail. Not again. Not ever. He signaled to the others, and they moved forward, their weapons raised, their eyes scanning the darkness. They were hunters now, stalking their prey, and they would not be denied. He turned to Marianne, his voice low and determined. We need to get them to a safe house, somewhere off the grid. We can't risk them being found again. Marianne nodded, her expression grim. I know a place. It's isolated, secure. We can lay low there while we figure out our next move. Victor looked at the children, their eyes wide and frightened. He knew they had a long road ahead of them, a road filled with healing and recovery. But he also knew that they were safe now, that they were free. And that was a start. As they drove, Victor's mind raced with plans and contingencies. He knew that Helix would not give up so easily, that they would come looking for the children. But he also knew that he was ready for them. He was ready to fight, to protect, to do whatever it took to keep these children safe. He looked at Lily, who was sitting quietly in the back of the bus, her small hand clutching the hand of the boy who had spoken to him. He saw the trust in her eyes, the love, and he knew that he would do whatever it took to protect her, to protect them all. He turned to Marianne, his voice steady and determined. We need to strike back. We need to take the fight to Helix. We need to make them pay for what they've done. Marianne nodded, her expression resolute. Agreed. But we need to be smart about it. We need to be strategic. We can't just charge in, guns blazing. We need to be patient, to wait for the right moment. Victor nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. We'll need more intel. We'll need to know their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. And we'll need allies. People who are willing to stand with us, to fight with us. Marianne smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. I know just the people, old friends from my days in the shadows. They owe me favors, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. Victor smiled back, his heart pounding with determination. Good, because we're going to need all the help we can get. We're going to war, Marianne. And we're not going to stop until Helix is nothing but ashes. As they drove, the night was silent, the only sound the hum of the engine and the soft whispers of the children in the back. But Victor knew that the silence would not last, that the storm was coming, and he was ready for it. He was ready to fight, to protect, to do whatever it took to keep these children safe. And he was ready to make Helix pay for their crimes. Victor's eyes narrowed as he studied Vanessa, searching for any hint of the woman he had once loved. But all he saw was a cold, calculating operative, a puppet of a shadowy organization. You're not getting her back, he said, his voice like ice. You're not getting any of them back. Vanessa's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. You don't understand, Victor. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. It's about the future of humanity. These children, they're the key to unlocking abilities that could change the world. Victor scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. Change the world? Or control it? Is that what this is about, Vanessa? Power? Money? Vanessa shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. You always were so naive, Victor, so idealistic. You think this is about power, about money. It's about survival. It's about ensuring that humanity doesn't go extinct. Victor's grip tightened on the gun in his pocket, but he didn't draw it. Not yet. He needed more information, needed to understand the full scope of what he was up against. And what makes you think that these children are the answer? What makes you think that you have the right to experiment on them, to manipulate them, to use them as pawns in your twisted game? Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger, but her voice remained calm. Because we have the science, Victor. We have the data. We know what's possible. And we know that these children are the future. They're the ones who will lead us into the next era of human evolution. Victor's mind raced as he tried to process what she was saying. He thought about Lily, about the other children they had rescued. He thought about the fear in their eyes, the pain, the trauma. And he knew that he couldn't let this continue. He couldn't let these monsters use these children for their own gain. "You're wrong, Vanessa," he said, his voice steady and determined. "These children are not your property. They're not your experiments. They're human beings with rights, with feelings, with dreams. And I will not let you hurt them. I will not let you use them." Vanessa's expression darkened, and for a moment, Victor thought she might attack him. But instead, she turned back to the window, her voice cold and distant. "You don't have a choice, Victor. This is bigger than you, bigger than me. It's about the future of humanity, and you can't stop it." Victor's hand tightened on the gun, but he didn't draw it. Not yet. He needed to buy more time, needed to find a way to expose the truth, to bring down Helix and everyone involved in Project Chimera. "You're wrong, Vanessa," he said, his voice like thunder. "I will stop it. I will expose the truth. And I will make sure that these children are safe, no matter what it takes." As he spoke, he heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway, the sound of security approaching. He knew that he had to act fast, that he had to find a way to escape, to warn the others, to plan his next move. But he also knew that he couldn't leave Vanessa behind. He couldn't leave her to continue her twisted experiments, to continue to hurt these innocent children. He took a deep breath, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that he was outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched. But he also knew that he couldn't give up, that he couldn't fail. Not when so much was at stake. Not when the future of these children hung in the balance. He turned to Vanessa, his voice low and dangerous. "This isn't over, Vanessa. Not by a long shot. I will find a way to stop you. I will find a way to expose the truth. And I will make sure that these children are safe, no matter what it takes." And with that, he turned and walked out of the office, his mind already formulating a plan. He would not fail. He would not give up. He would fight, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. He would fight for Lily, for the other children, for the truth, and he would not stop until Helix was nothing but ashes. She hesitated, her eyes flicking between Victor and the advancing security team. "You can't stop this, Victor. It's too big, too important." Victor's grip tightened on Damien's arm, eliciting a grunt of pain. "I don't care how big it is, Vanessa. I don't care how important you think it is. These children are not your experiments. They're not your pawns. They're human beings, and they deserve to live their lives in peace, without being manipulated and controlled by people like you." Vanessa's expression hardened, and she reached for the panic button again. But Victor was ready. He lunged forward, his hand closing around her wrist once more. "Don't," he warned, his voice low and dangerous. "I will not hesitate to use force if I have to. I will not let you hurt these children. I will not let you use them for your own gain." Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger, but she didn't resist. Instead, she turned to Damien, her voice cold and calculating. "Give him the files, Damien. He's right. We can't let this get out. Not yet. Not until we're ready." Damien's expression was a mix of fury and resignation. He nodded, his voice tight with anger. "Very well. But this isn't over, Mercer. You can't stop progress. You can't stop the future." Victor's grip on Damien's arm tightened, and he leaned in close, his voice a low growl. "I can, and I will. I will not let you hurt these children. I will not let you use them for your own gain. And I will not let you get away with what you've done." He released Damien, stepping back and keeping his weapon trained on the two of them. "The files, Damien. Now." Damien reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, encrypted USB drive. He tossed it to Victor, his expression dark with anger. There you go, Mercer. Everything you need to bring down Helix. Everything you need to expose the truth. Victor caught the drive, his eyes never leaving Damien's face. I hope so. Because if you're lying, if you're trying to trick me, I will make you pay. I will make you suffer for what you've done. He backed away, keeping his weapon trained on the two of them as he moved toward the door. And remember this, Vanessa. I will not stop until Helix is nothing but ashes. I will not stop until every person involved in Project Chimera is brought to justice, and I will not stop until these children are safe. With that, he turned and walked out of the office, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that he had to act fast, that he had to find a way to expose the truth, to bring down Helix and everyone involved in Project Chimera. But he also knew that he couldn't do it alone. He needed allies, needed help, needed a way to fight back against the shadowy forces that were arrayed against him. As he made his way through the chaos of the building, he pulled out his phone, dialing Marianne's number. I have the files, he said, his voice low and urgent. But we need to move fast. We need to expose the truth, to bring down Helix, to save these children. And we need to do it before they can stop us. Marianne's voice was steady and determined. We're on our way. We'll meet you at the safe house. And then we'll take down Helix, once and for all. Victor's mind raced as he watched the children, their eyes closed, their expressions serene. He thought about the files, about the experiments, about the twisted goals of Project Chimera. He thought about Lily, about the fear in her eyes, about the strength she had shown. And he knew that he had to protect her, had to keep her safe, no matter what it took. He turned to Marianne, his voice low and determined. We need to help them. We need to teach them how to control their abilities, how to use them safely. We can't let them be afraid of what they can do. Marianne nodded, her expression grim. I've already started. We've been working with them, teaching them basic exercises, helping them understand and control their powers. But it's going to take time, Victor. And we need to be careful. We can't let them get overwhelmed. Can't let them get hurt. Victor looked back at the children, at Lily, and he knew that Marianne was right. They needed time, needed patience, needed guidance, and he was determined to give them that, no matter what it took. He turned back to Marianne, his voice steady and resolved. We'll give them that time. We'll give them that patience, and we'll give them that guidance. But we also need to be prepared. We need to be ready for whatever comes next, because I have a feeling that this is just the beginning. Marianne smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. I'm ready, Victor. I'm ready for whatever comes next, and I'm ready to fight, to protect, to do whatever it takes to keep these children safe. Victor nodded, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that they had a long road ahead of them, a road filled with danger and uncertainty. But he also knew that they were not alone, that they had each other, that they had the strength and the determination to see this through. He turned back to the children, to Lily, and he knew that he would do whatever it took to protect them, to keep them safe, to give them the future that they deserved. And he knew that he would not stop, not until Helix was nothing but ashes, not until every person involved in Project Chimera was brought to justice, not until these children were free. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding with determination. All right, let's get to work. Let's give these children the future that they deserve. Let's give them the chance to live their lives in peace, to use their abilities for good, to be the heroes that they were always meant to be. And with that, he turned and walked toward the children, his mind already focused on the task at hand, his heart already filled with love and determination. He would not fail them. He would not let them down. He would fight for them, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. And he would not stop until they were safe, until they were free, until they were the heroes that they were always meant to be. A sudden pressure filled the air, and the wind seemed to shift around them, pulsing with invisible force. Above, the helicopters wavered in their flight paths. Leaves and branches shook as if caught in a storm, but there was no breeze. Marianne placed a hand on Victor's shoulder, keeping him from moving closer. Andrew and Sophie's bodies tensed, their faces pale with effort. The whirring rotors of the nearest helicopter wobbled, and then, with a sharp metallic screech, the craft spun off course, rising to avoid an unseen collision. Its spotlight faltered, slicing wildly through the trees before the pilot regained control and veered away. Through the noise and confusion, Sophie gasped, nearly collapsing. Marianne rushed to steady her while Victor watched, awed and terrified in equal measure. "You did it," he whispered, helping Andrew to stand as the boy wobbled on his feet. "We can't keep them away for long," Andrew managed, sweat beading his brow. "But it bought us a few minutes." "Good work, both of you," Victor said, his tone filled with pride and urgency. "Let's use those minutes well. Marianne, take point." We moved deeper. No trails, no tracks. They plunged into the thick undergrowth, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the search teams. Branches scraped at their clothes and faces, but they pressed on, adrenaline driving them forward. Behind them, the helicopters regrouped, searching for any sign of the fugitives. But thanks to Andrew and Sophie's intervention, the groups were misdirected, flying in crisscrossing patterns over the wrong areas of forest. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached a rocky outcrop marking the concealed entrance to the old mining complex. Marianne keyed in the access code, and the thick door slid open with a muted hiss. The cool darkness inside promised safety, at least for now. Victor ushered everyone in, then secured the entrance behind them. As their breathing slowed and the immediate threat faded, he thanked the teenagers again. Their abilities had saved them all. And deep down, he realized, this was only the beginning of what these extraordinary children, and the new family they had formed, were capable of. Victor's heart pounded in his chest as he listened to Lily's words. He knelt down beside her, his voice steady and reassuring. "We won't let that happen, sweetheart. We'll keep you safe. We'll keep all of you safe." Lily looked up at him, her eyes filled with trust and determination. "I know, Daddy, but we have to be careful. He's very powerful. And he's coming for us." Victor's mind raced as he processed this new information. He thought about the files, about the shadowy figures pulling the strings from behind the scenes. He thought about the children, about their abilities, about the danger they were in. And he knew that he had to act, had to find a way to protect them, to keep them safe. He took a deep breath, his voice low and determined. "We will be careful, Lily. We will be smart, and we will be strong. We will not let them hurt you. We will not let them hurt any of you." Lily nodded, her expression serious. "I know, Daddy, but we have to be ready. We have to be prepared, because they're coming, and they won't stop until they find us." Victor's grip tightened on her hand, and he knew that she was right. They had to be ready. They had to be prepared. And they had to be strong, because the battle for the children's future had only just begun. He stood, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that they had to act fast, had to find a way to strike back, to take the fight to their enemies. And he knew that he had to do whatever it took to keep these children safe, to give them the future that they deserved. He turned to Lily, his voice steady and resolved. "We will be ready, sweetheart. We will be prepared, and we will be strong. And together, we will face whatever comes next. Together, we will fight. And together, we will win." And with that, he turned and walked out of the room, his mind already focused on the task at hand. His heart already filled with love and determination. He would not fail them. He would not let them down. He would fight for them, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. And he would not stop until they were safe, until they were free, until they were the heroes that they were always meant to be. Victor's grip tightened on his weapon, his voice low and dangerous. "And you think I should believe you? After everything you've done, after everything you've lied about?" Vanessa's expression didn't change, but her eyes held a desperate plea. I know you have no reason to trust me, Victor, but I'm telling the truth. Coleman is ruthless. He won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stands in his way. And he sees these children as disposable assets, nothing more. Victor's mind raced as he processed this new information. He thought about the children, about their abilities, about the danger they were in. And he knew that he had to act, had to find a way to protect them, to keep them safe. He took a deep breath, his voice steady and determined. And what makes you think that I won't just hand you over to Coleman? What makes you think that I won't let him do to you what he plans to do to the children? Vanessa's expression hardened, and she took a step closer, her voice low and urgent. Because I know you, Victor. I know that you would never let innocent people be hurt. I know that you would never let these children be used as pawns in some twisted game. And I know that you would never let me be used as a pawn either. Victor's grip on his weapon tightened, and he knew that she was right. He knew that he couldn't let these children be hurt, couldn't let them be used, couldn't let them be controlled. And he knew that he couldn't let Vanessa be used either. He took a deep breath, his voice low and dangerous. All right, Vanessa. I'll listen to what you have to say. But if I find out that you're lying, if I find out that you're trying to trick me, I will make you pay. I will make you suffer for what you've done. Vanessa nodded, her expression serious. I understand, Victor, and I'm willing to take that risk, because I know that you're the only one who can stop Coleman. I know that you're the only one who can save these children, and I know that you're the only one who can expose the truth. Victor's mind raced as he processed this new information. He knew that he had to act fast, had to find a way to strike back, to take the fight to their enemies. And he knew that he had to do whatever it took to keep these children safe, to give them the future that they deserved. He turned to Vanessa, his voice steady and resolved. All right, Vanessa, tell me everything. Tell me about Coleman, about the black site, about the children. Tell me everything you know. And then we'll make a plan. We'll find a way to stop him, to save the children, to expose the truth. And we'll do it together. And with that, he turned and walked back to the main entrance, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that they had a long road ahead of them, a road filled with danger and uncertainty. But he also knew that they were not alone, that they had each other, that they had the strength and the determination to see this through. And he knew that they would not stop, not until Helix was nothing but ashes, not until every person involved in Project Chimera was brought to justice, not until these children were safe. Victor watched the scene unfold, his expression unreadable. He saw the genuine emotion in Vanessa's eyes, the way she held Lily, the way she whispered to her, but he also saw the way Lily looked at him, the way she sought his approval, his reassurance. And he knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. He couldn't let his guard down, couldn't let himself be fooled again. After a few moments, he stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. All right, that's enough. Lily, come here, sweetheart. Lily looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. Daddy, Mommy's here. She came to help us. Victor nodded, his heart aching for his daughter. I know, sweetheart, but we need to talk to Mommy about some important things. Can you go with Marianne for a little while? Lily hesitated, then nodded, taking Marianne's hand and walking away. Vanessa watched them go, her expression a mix of sadness and determination. She's grown so much, she said softly. Victor's expression hardened. She's had to. Because of you, because of what you did, because of the lies, the deception, the manipulation. Vanessa's eyes met his, and he saw the pain in them, the regret. I know, Victor. I know what I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I'm here now. I'm here to help. I'm here to make things right. Victor studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, Vanessa. Let's talk. Let's talk about the black site, about the children, about Coleman. Let's talk about everything. And then we'll see if I can believe you. We'll see if I can trust you. And with that, he turned and walked to the conference table, his mind already racing with questions, with doubts, with plans. He knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. He knew that he couldn't let his guard down, couldn't let himself be fooled again. But he also knew that he had to listen, had to consider, had to evaluate. Because if Vanessa was telling the truth, if she was truly here to help, then they had a chance. A chance to save the children, a chance to expose the truth, a chance to bring down Helix and everyone involved in Project Chimera. And he was determined to take that chance, no matter what it took. Victor's instincts kicked in, and he moved with swift precision, his training taking over. "Diego, get the children to the emergency exit. Now," he barked, his voice echoing through the facility. Diego nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he activated the emergency protocols. "On it," he replied, his voice tense. Victor turned to Marianne, who was already by his side, her weapon at the ready. "We need to buy them time. Cover the main entrance and the secondary access points. Tobias, secure Vanessa and get her to the safe room. We can't risk her being recaptured." Tobias nodded, his expression grim. "Understood. Be careful out there." As Tobias moved to secure Vanessa, Victor and Marianne took up positions at the main entrance, their weapons trained on the breached door. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the tunnels, and Victor knew that they were running out of time. "Remember, Marianne," he said, his voice low and steady, "we hold them off until the children are safe, no matter what it takes." Marianne nodded, her eyes focused on the darkness beyond the door. "Understood. Let's give them hell." The first wave of attackers burst through the door, their weapons raised. Victor and Marianne opened fire, their shots precise and deadly. The tunnel filled with the sound of gunfire, the acrid smell of smoke, and the screams of the wounded. Victor moved with practiced efficiency, his mind calculating angles and trajectories. He took down one attacker after another, his weapon never wavering. Beside him, Marianne fought with equal ferocity, her shots echoing through the tunnel. But the attackers kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Victor knew that they couldn't hold out forever. They needed to buy more time, needed to find a way to turn the tide. He turned to Marianne, his voice urgent. "We need to fall back. Cover the secondary access points. We can't let them flank us." Marianne nodded, her expression determined. "On it. Be careful, Victor." As Marianne moved to cover the secondary access points, Victor fell back, his weapon still raised. He knew that they were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but he also knew that they couldn't give up, couldn't fail. Not when so much was at stake, not when the future of these children hung in the balance. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. And then he turned and ran, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He would not fail. He would not give up. He would fight, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. He would fight for the children, for the truth, for justice. And he would not stop until Helix was nothing but ashes, until every person involved in Project Chimera was brought to justice, until these children were safe. Victor grabbed Vanessa's arm, pulling her along as they rushed through the crumbling tunnels. "We need to move faster. The facility is collapsing." Marianne took the lead, her weapon at the ready, guiding them through the twisting, dark corridors. "We're almost there," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. As they ran, Victor could hear the sound of pursuit, the heavy boots of the attackers echoing through the tunnels. He knew that they were running out of time, that they had to reach the rendezvous point before the facility collapsed completely. They burst out of the tunnel into the cold night air, the sound of explosions and collapsing rock echoing behind them. The transport vehicle was waiting, its engine running, ready to go. Tobias was at the wheel, his expression grim. "Get in," he said, his voice urgent. "We need to move. Now." Victor pushed Vanessa into the vehicle, then turned to Marianne. "Go. I'll cover our retreat." Marianne hesitated for a moment, then nodded, climbing into the vehicle. "Be careful, Victor. As the vehicle sped away, Victor turned to face the pursuing attackers, his weapon raised. He knew that he had to hold them off, had to give the others time to escape, and he was ready to do whatever it took. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest, and then he opened fire, his shots echoing through the night. He moved with practiced efficiency, his mind calculating angles and trajectories. He took down one attacker after another, his weapon never wavering. But the attackers kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Victor knew that he couldn't hold out forever, that he had to find a way to turn the tide. He took a deep breath, his mind racing with plans and contingencies, and then he turned and ran, his weapon still raised. He knew that he had to reach the rendezvous point, had to find the others, had to make sure that they were safe, and he was determined to do whatever it took to make that happen. He would not fail. He would not give up. He would fight, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. He would fight for the children, for the truth, for justice, and he would not stop until Helix was nothing but ashes, until every person involved in Project Chimera was brought to justice, until these children were safe. Victor's expression hardened as he looked at Vanessa, his voice low and dangerous. "You're staying here. With Tobias. We can't risk you leading them straight to us again." Vanessa nodded weakly, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "I understand. But Victor, be careful. This man, whoever he is, he's not like Coleman. He's playing a different game." Victor's grip tightened on his weapon, and he knew that she was right. He knew that he was walking into a trap, that he was putting himself in danger. But he also knew that he had to do it, had to find out who this man was, had to find out what he wanted. Because he knew that the future of these children, the future of Lily, depended on it. He turned to Marianne and Diego, his voice steady and resolved. "All right, let's move out. We stick to the plan. We stay alert, we stay cautious, and we stay together. And we don't stop until we find out who this man is and what he wants." They moved swiftly and silently through the forest, their weapons at the ready, their senses on high alert. The coordinates led them to an abandoned cabin, nestled deep in the woods, far from any signs of civilization. The cabin was dark, the only sound the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Victor signaled for Marianne and Diego to take up positions around the cabin, their weapons trained on the doors and windows. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest, and then stepped forward, his weapon raised. As he approached the cabin, the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. A figure stood in the doorway, his face obscured by the shadows. "Come in, Mr. Mercer," the man said, his voice cultured and calm. "I've been expecting you." Victor hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside, his weapon still raised. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw that the man was alone, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. But Victor knew better than to trust appearances. He knew that this man was dangerous, that he was playing a game, and that he had to be careful. "Who are you?" Victor demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "What do you want?" The man smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "I am someone who shares your interests, Mr. Mercer. Someone who wants to see Project Chimera dismantled, once and for all. Someone who wants to see these children safe and free." Victor's grip tightened on his weapon, and he knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. He knew that this man was not to be trusted, that he was playing a game, and that he had to find out what that game was, and how to win it. "And why should I believe you?" he asked, his voice steady and resolved. "Why should I trust you, after everything that's happened?" The man's smile faded, and he took a step closer, his voice low and urgent. "Because, Mr. Mercer, I am the only one who can help you. I am the only one who can save these children, who can expose the truth, who can bring down Helix and everyone involved in Project Chimera. And I am the only one who can do it without getting you, or your daughter, or any of these remarkable children, killed. Victor's eyes narrowed as he studied Preston, his voice low and dangerous. And you think I should trust you? After everything that's happened, after everything that's been done to these children, to my daughter, you expect me to believe that you're here to help? Preston's expression didn't change, but his eyes held a steady, unblinking gaze. I understand your skepticism, Mr. Mercer, but consider this. If we were working with Coleman, if we were part of his operation, we would have taken the children and disappeared. We would have eliminated you and anyone else who stood in our way. But we didn't. We brought you here. We showed you the children. We gave you the chance to see for yourself that they are safe and unharmed. Victor's grip tightened on his weapon, and he knew that Preston was right. He knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. But he also knew that he had to listen, had to consider, had to evaluate. Because if Preston was telling the truth, if he was truly here to help, then they had a chance. A chance to save the children. A chance to expose the truth. A chance to bring down Helix and everyone involved in Project Chimera. He took a deep breath, his voice steady and resolved. All right, Preston. Let's say I believe you. Let's say I believe that you're here to help. What do you want from me? What's your plan? Preston nodded, as if expecting the question. Our goal is to dismantle Project Chimera completely, to expose the truth, to bring down Helix, to ensure that these children are safe and free. But we need your help, Mr. Mercer. We need your skills, your knowledge, your connections. We need you to lead this operation, to be the face of this fight, because you're the one who started it, and you're the one who can finish it. Victor's mind raced as he processed this new information. He thought about the children, about their abilities, about the danger they were in. And he knew that he had to act, had to find a way to protect them, to keep them safe. He took a deep breath, his voice low and determined. All right, Preston. I'm in, but we do this my way. We plan, we prepare, and we strike with precision and force. And we don't stop until every person involved in Project Chimera is brought to justice, until these children are safe, and until the truth is exposed. Preston smiled, a cold, calculating smile. I wouldn't expect anything less, Mr. Mercer. Welcome to the coalition. Let's bring down Helix once and for all. He turned to Preston, his voice urgent. We need to move fast. Get the children to safety. I'll take Lily and create a diversion. Once Coleman's forces are focused on us, you evacuate the rest. Preston nodded, his expression grim. Understood. Be careful, Mr. Mercer. Coleman won't hesitate to kill you if he gets the chance. Victor's grip tightened on his weapon, and he knew that Preston was right. He knew that he was walking into danger, that he was putting himself in harm's way. But he also knew that he had to do it, had to find a way to protect Lily, to keep her safe, to give her the future that she deserved. He turned to Lily, his voice gentle but firm. All right, sweetheart. It's time for our game. Remember, you have to be very still, very quiet, and you have to do exactly what I tell you. Lily nodded, her eyes wide but determined. I can do it, Daddy. I can be very brave. Victor smiled, his heart swelling with pride and love. That's my girl. Now let's go. We need to find a good hiding spot. He led her to a small concealed room, a safe house within the facility. He positioned her in a corner, surrounded by blankets and pillows, making her look as if she were sleeping. Stay here, sweetheart. Stay very still, very quiet. And remember, you're playing our special game. You're pretending to be asleep. Lily nodded, her eyes closed, her breathing slow and steady. Victor watched her for a moment, his heart aching with love and fear. And then, he turned and walked away, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He moved swiftly and silently through the facility, his weapon at the ready, his senses on high alert. He knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. He knew that he had to find a way to create a diversion, to draw Coleman's forces away from the children, to give them time to escape. As he approached the main entrance, he saw the first of Coleman's forces breaching the doors, their weapons raised, their expressions cold and determined. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. And then he opened fire, his shots echoing through the facility, his weapon never wavering. He moved with practiced efficiency, his mind calculating angles and trajectories. He took down one attacker after another, his weapon precise and deadly. But he knew that he couldn't hold out forever, that he had to find a way to turn the tide, to create a diversion, to give the children time to escape. He turned and ran, his weapon still raised, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that he had to find a way to draw Coleman's forces away from the children, to give them time to escape, and he was determined to do whatever it took to make that happen. He would not fail. He would not give up. He would fight, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. He would fight for Lily, for the children, for the truth, for justice. And he would not stop until Helix was nothing but ashes, until every person involved in Project Chimera was brought to justice, until these children were safe. Victor's heart pounded as he watched Coleman approach, his weapon raised, his eyes scanning the darkness. He knew that they had to act fast, had to find a way to take Coleman down before his men could find them. He turned to Lily, his voice low and urgent. "All right, sweetheart. It's time for the next part of the plan. You need to make the bad man see something else, something that will distract him, something that will give us an advantage." Lily nodded, her eyes closed in concentration. Victor watched as Coleman's expression changed, his eyes widening in shock and fear. He looked around, his weapon raised, his body tense. Victor took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. And then he moved, his weapon raised, his eyes locked on Coleman. He knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. He knew that he had to find a way to take Coleman down, to keep him from hurting Lily, to keep him from hurting any of the children. He moved silently through the darkness, his weapon raised, his eyes scanning the area for any sign of Coleman's men. He knew that they were out there, that they were looking for him, that they were looking for Lily, and he knew that he had to find a way to take them down, to keep them from finding them, to keep them from hurting them. As he approached Coleman, he saw the man's expression change, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. He knew that he had been discovered, that he had been seen, and he knew that he had to act fast, had to find a way to take Coleman down before it was too late. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. And then he opened fire, his shots echoing through the night, his weapon precise and deadly. He took down Coleman, his body crumpling to the ground, his weapon falling from his hand. But Victor knew that he couldn't stop, that he had to keep moving, that he had to find a way to take down the rest of Coleman's men, to keep them from finding Lily, to keep them from hurting any of the children. He turned and ran, his weapon still raised, his mind racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that he had to find a way to draw Coleman's forces away from the children, to give them time to escape, and he was determined to do whatever it took to make that happen. He would not fail. He would not give up. He would fight, with every ounce of his strength, with every fiber of his being. He would fight for Lily, for the children, for the truth, for justice, and he would not stop until Helix was nothing but ashes, until every person involved in Project Chimera was brought to justice, until these children were safe. Victor's grip tightened on the controls, his voice low and dangerous. "You knew about the Arachne. You knew about the trap. You set us up." There was a pause on the line, and then Vanessa's voice came back, steady and calm. "I didn't set you up, Victor. I warned you. There's a difference. I knew Coleman would have a contingency plan. I knew he would be prepared. But I also knew that you could handle it. I knew that you could outsmart him, outmaneuver him, outfight him. And you did." Victor's mind raced as he processed this new information. He thought about the children, about their abilities, about the danger they were in. And he knew that he had to act, had to find a way to protect them, to keep them safe. He took a deep breath, his voice steady and resolved. "Where are you, Vanessa? Where are the children?" Vanessa's voice was soft, almost gentle. "They're safe, Victor. They're with Preston and his people. They're being taken to a secure location, a place where they can be protected, where they can be free. And you can join them, Victor. You and Lily. You can be safe too." Victor's grip tightened on the controls, and he knew that he had to be careful, had to be cautious. He knew that he couldn't trust Vanessa, not completely. But he also knew that he had to listen, had to consider, had to evaluate. Because if Vanessa was telling the truth, if she was truly here to help, then they had a chance. A chance to save the children. A chance to expose the truth. A chance to bring down Helix and everyone involved in Project Chimera. He took a deep breath, his voice low and determined. "All right, Vanessa. I'll meet you. But I'm not coming alone. I'm bringing Lily. And I'm bringing every ounce of my strength, every fiber of my being. And I'm bringing my weapon. Because I will not be fooled again. I will not be betrayed again. And I will not let anyone hurt my daughter, or any of these children, ever again." And with that, he turned the helicopter, his mind already racing with plans and contingencies. He knew that he had to act fast, had to find a way to strike back, to take the fight to their enemies. And he knew that he had to do whatever it took to keep these children safe, to give them the future that they deserved. Victor kept his senses sharp as he guided Lily along a wooded trail, the forest silent except for the crunch of gravel beneath their boots. The converted research station came into clearer view with every step, a fortress masquerading as a sanctuary, ringed by motion sensors, discreet cameras, and guards who looked more like elite operatives than caretakers. As they neared the main entrance, Victor slowed, eyes raking over every detail. Preston himself emerged from the building, flanked by two of his people. He wore an expression that hovered between relief and weariness. "Mr. Mercer, welcome. We've secured the area and the children are safe inside. Marianne and Vanessa are waiting." Victor met his gaze, not relaxing, but not raising his weapon either. "I'll see the children first," he said, firm and clear. "Of course," Preston replied, motioning for one of the guards to escort them. Inside, the station was a curious blend of comfort and function. Spacious rooms, soft light, reinforced doors, and visible medical supplies. Victor's tension eased a fraction when he saw the children gathered in a common room. Marianne stood at the back, watchful, while Vanessa sat on a couch, a dressing on her wounded shoulder. When Lily entered, the other children brightened, running to greet her. A reunion, tearful for some, subdued for others, took place before Victor's eyes. Marianne approached Victor, her posture guarded but face softening. "They're mostly shaken, but unharmed. Preston's people have been careful, but everyone's anxious to see you." Victor nodded, scanning the room for any signs of distress or hidden threat. Only after he'd satisfied himself that all the children were truly safe did he turn back to Preston and Vanessa. "We need to talk privately. All of us." He glanced pointedly at Vanessa. "There's a lot that still needs to be answered." Preston agreed, gesturing toward a glass-walled office nearby. As Victor led Lily in, he finally felt, for the briefest moment, the weight of the last frantic hours lift. But in the back of his mind, the storm of questions, suspicions, and the threats left in the shadows kept him locked in battle-ready vigilance. Whatever happened in that room would decide the future, for his daughter, for the children, and perhaps for the world itself. Vanessa looked weary, the lines of guilt and loss etched deep in her features. China has moved their research into a military facility. They've lost 2 subjects to burnout. Israel's program is smaller but more secretive. So far, no confirmed successes. Everyone is looking for a shortcut, but they haven't found one. Victor sipped his coffee, his posture relaxed, but his eyes keen, every instinct tuned to her words. "And what about the children here? Any sign of leaks, surveillance, new players?" She shook her head. "No leaks. Preston's network is held. Security hasn't been breached. You were right to insist on isolation and frequent relocations. The children are thriving. Well, as much as they can. Some are making progress, learning to control their gifts. Others are struggling with the responsibility. But there have been no incidents, and none have been approached by outsiders. Their conversation drifted to Lily. Vanessa's voice softened, but she didn't ask for more access than what had been agreed upon. She seems happy, Victor. Do you think she forgives me? Victor looked away, uncertain. It's not about forgiveness. It's about trust and healing. That takes time. He stood to leave, the meeting ending without ceremony. The arrangement with Preston remained in place, each party respecting the uneasy peace they'd forged for the children's sake. As he walked through the city, Victor allowed himself a small measure of hope that for now, Lily and the others could simply be children, watched over, protected, but never controlled. Somewhere in a secure house, surrounded by friends who shared her experiences and teachers who understood her gifts, Lily played by the window, drawing pictures of dragons and heroes who always won. It wasn't the future Victor had dreamed for her, but after everything they'd survived, it was a future, one bought with risk, sacrifice, and love. And in the shadows, Victor watched over them all, ready for whatever threats the world might send their way next. Victor smiled at Lily, his heart swelling with pride and love. You're getting stronger every day, sweetheart. Soon, you'll be able to do things even you can't imagine. Lily beamed at him, her eyes shining with excitement. I want to learn more, Daddy. I want to help the others too. Like Andrew and Sophie. They're my friends. Victor nodded, his expression serious. And you will, Lily. You'll learn, and you'll grow, and you'll help them. But for now, let's focus on you. Let's make sure you're safe, and happy, and strong. He took her hand, and they walked back into the house, where Marianne was waiting. She smiled at them, her expression warm and reassuring. How was your visit with Mommy? She asked gently. Lily hesitated, then nodded. It was good. She said she's sorry. She said she wants to help us. Victor's expression didn't change, but his grip tightened on Lily's hand. And we'll see, sweetheart. We'll see if she can help. But for now, let's focus on you. Let's make sure you're safe and happy and strong. Marianne nodded, her expression understanding. Of course. That's what we're here for. To keep you safe and happy and strong. As they sat down to dinner, Victor looked around the table at the people who had become his family. Marianne, Tobias, Diego, and the children. They had all been through so much, had all sacrificed so much. But they had also found something in each other, a bond that went beyond blood, beyond loyalty, beyond friendship. They had found a family, forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by the shadows of the world they had left behind. And as he looked at Lily, at her bright eyes and her shining smile, he knew that he would do whatever it took to keep her safe, to keep her happy, to keep her strong. He would walk through the shadows. He would face the darkness. He would fight the battles that needed to be fought. Because that was who he was, that was what he did. He was Victor Mercer, and he would not fail. He would not give up. He would not be defeated. He would stand, he would fight, he would protect. And he would never, ever let anyone hurt his daughter or any of these children ever again.